Have you ever been in a space where you said to yourself, I don't know how to do this, and I'm worried that it's not going to turn out, or I'm not going to get the right outcome. And whatever it is that you are doing that is something that's new to you, something you've never done before, have you ever had those emotions arise? That just because we haven't done it before, we're incapable. Like, we don't have the skill. We don't have, the willpower. We start thinking these negative thoughts about like why we can't do something. It's so interesting how we are so clear and have a lot more thoughts on why we can't do something rather than looking at the thoughts that make us believe and that are a little bit more positive to why you can do something. It's so interesting how our brains work sometimes, right? Welcome into Behind the Spotlight podcast, where your story matters. I'm Danielle J. Martin, your host, and I'm on a mission to empower and educate you towards your greatness. On this podcast, you'll learn ways to turn your thoughts into action. Plus, you'll also learn from individuals who will share personal experiences and actionable steps on how to create the life you desire. Now, let's dive into today's episode. What's going on, you guys? Welcome to Behind the Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, and welcome into this week's Mindset Monday. I'm super excited to connect with you because, one, it's a new week. We have another opportunity to show up. We have another opportunity to be our best. And honey, today and even this week, we are showing up full throttle. You know why? Because we are capable to do so. I'm super excited to share with you guys that I just had a whole high last weekend, okay? In case you guys don't know, I launched my first podcast launch workshop. It took place on Saturday, and honey, let me tell you, first of all, to get to that space, it was a little challenging, okay? I had a lot of tech issues. I had to practice and just kind of get comfortable doing something I'm not familiar with. Have you ever been there before? Have you ever been in a space where you're like, oh crap, like we really are doing this thing. Like we are really showing up and we are doing something we have never done before. Sometimes it could be intimidating. I'm not going to lie. You're like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm doing this cool thing. The week comes, the day comes, the hour comes, the moment comes, and you are saying to yourself, okay, we are here. We are doing this. And so I want to share that experience with you because honestly, this is what this week's podcast episode is about, is to remind yourself why you are made for this. Okay. And I think the best way I can teach you is by giving you my real life experience. And I hope you are enjoying it because I'm just taking you all on the ride with me. And so on Saturday, I launched my podcast workshop and it was so exhilarating. I'm not going to lie. It was so exciting. I think in that moment, or honestly after, I literally said to myself, I said, oh, this is what I was made for. And in that moment, I literally had a whole epiphany and said, oh my gosh, I enjoy doing this. And it's a high like no other. Like, it's different than, I don't know, when I used to be on the news and I did weekend anchoring and I, was on live news and you're sharing the news. I think it's so different being live with people you can actually connect with, right? Like on Zoom, like literally just on the other side of the screen, like you are communicating with people, you're presenting, you are walking them through the steps in person. Like it's a whole different experience in live I've never experienced until Saturday. And after I said, oh my gosh, I want to do more of this. How do I do more of this? Like, this is so fun, right? And so in that moment, I just said to myself, do you remember when before the workshop came, you were nervous, you were anxious, you were a little bit fearful because you've never done it before, a little doubtful because you were worried that you wouldn't say the right thing? Have you ever been in that space? Have you ever been in a space where you said to yourself, I don't know how to do this, and I'm worried that it's not going to turn out, or I'm not going to get the right outcome. And whatever it is that you are doing that is something that's new to you, something you've never done before, have you ever had those emotions arise? Well, I want to encourage you today and ask you and challenge you rather to lean into that. I'm a testimony. I am literally here walking you through step by step what's happening with me. And I hope you are enjoying the experience and lessons that I'm learning and that you could probably take and honestly just get ahead and learn from my experience and take it and apply it to your situation. And just remember that just because you've never done it before doesn't mean that you can't do it. And just because you've never done it before doesn't mean that you don't have the capability to learn how to do it and get better. And it's interesting because I think that we think that just because we haven't done it before, we are we're incapable. Like we don't have the skill. We don't have the willpower. We start thinking these negative thoughts about why we can't do something. It's so interesting how we are so clear and have a lot more thoughts on why we can't do something rather than looking at the thoughts that make us believe and that are a little bit more positive to why you can do something. It's so interesting how our brains work sometimes, right? I'm like, why as humans are we wired like this? But honestly, it goes back to what I was talking about last week. It goes back to rewiring your brain and reminding yourself that you have to literally train your brain to think differently. And so, to be honest with you, I did that. Okay. Last week when I was preparing for my workshop, you guys, I was terrified. I said to myself, what did you sign up for? Have you ever done that? You sign up for something or a cool project, a cool idea. You're like, oh, it would be so cool if I did X, Y, and Z. And then you get there and you're like, who said, why? Why did we say we could do this, right? In one moment. And then the next moment you're like, yes, we can do this. We're fired up. We got this. It's like a mix of emotions. It's literally a roller coaster. But I literally had to pause. And so I want to share with you, something I did that honestly prepared me for the moment. Because in that moment when I was presenting and when I finished, I felt so proud of myself to where all of the pre-thoughts and negative thoughts I had went out the window. And so if I can help you get there faster and get you more prepared for the opportunity or the idea or project or whatever it is that you are working on, I want to help you do so. So this is what happened. As I was preparing, number one, make sure you set yourself up for success by preparing for what's coming. Meaning, if you are giving a presentation, if you are getting ready to speak in front of people, practice, go through your PowerPoint a couple of times, not just once, go through it, say it out loud, literally present in front of nobody or whoever in your living room, literally present to someone, whether it's yourself talking out loud to imaginary people or getting a friend or a spouse to say, hey, can you come listen to my presentation that I'm getting ready for? Literally, the best way to show up and succeed is literally by practicing. It sounds cliche, but it works. You winging it is not going to work anymore. I know for me, where God is calling me, I can't wing it anymore. It is not allowed. I can't do that. And so for you, you shouldn't do that because you are not going to show up for success. And people will notice that. People will identify with that. People will see right through that and say, oh, she's not prepared immediately. And something I will tell you guys is I cannot stand watching presentations. And someone is presenting and reading the slide. Honey, I can read myself. Thank you. What is the presentation about? What are you here to tell me, right? So prepare. That's number one. Number two, be still I know we've been talking about this, but really, I had to be still and get by yourself. I think it's so important to find some time, whatever it is that you were preparing for, find some time out of that week to really get by yourself more often than not, right? Whether it's an hour, a whole day, be still with your thoughts. That way you hear yourself, you hear what God is saying, and it sounds clear. So I encourage you, be still, get by yourself, and really pray. If you are in that space where you are that person that prays out loud, I literally talk to God out loud all the time. Like me and him, we just have that relationship. It's great. It's amazing. And so for me, I pray out loud. And so on Saturday or Friday or whatever day it was last week, I was still, I prayed. And in that moment, I heard God speak so loud. And it was in that moment that I said, okay, all right. And the word that I got was, you are made for this. I would not bring you to a space. You would not be brought to a space where you would not be able to succeed and be the person you were called to be. Okay. And so I hope that really resonates with you today, because I know what it feels like to come up against something you've never done before and look at it in the face and say, okay, we're here. How do we get through this? And so for me, it was leaning on God, reminding myself constantly, even like throughout the whole day, the whole week, like I'm telling myself, I'm made for this. I'm made for this. I'm also getting comfortable with myself by having low expectations. So that's the next point. Have low expectations for yourself, because I really do think that really opened up my spirit and my mind a little bit, is by taking the expectations off of me. I think the moments I have expectations for myself, like, come on, Danielle, you knew you were supposed to do this. You know, you're supposed to, talk like this or present like this or be like this. In the moments I've been in that space, honey, let me tell you, I was not performing well at all. But on Saturday, I literally had low expectations. I said, honey, the goal is to get through the workshop. The goal is to connect with people. The goal is to help at least one person. And I did that. I literally did that. Like, I was able to get not even one, but multiple people in a clear headspace to identify why they wanted to start a podcast and get them on the right track to starting it and to take action. People even printed out the guide in the workshop. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I didn't know that this would work, right? And so it's so interesting too, because a part of you is still trying to figure it out. A part of you is still like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. I've never done it before. But don't lean into that thought. Lean more into a space where you know you can do this. Lean more into the space where you're like, I am an expert. I've done this before. Like, you literally have to talk to yourself and just say to yourself over and over and over that, like, we can do this. I am made for this. I am confident. I know what I'm talking about. I'm literally saying those affirmations in my head and out loud constantly, right? The entire time. There's something about affirmations, being still, preparing, all of those things I just told you, that when I press record and when I was able to connect with people, there was just like all this pressure that I was putting on myself released. It just released. And I was able to show up as me. I was able to show up like Danielle. I was able to show up like the person that God created me to be. And it wasn't this like newsy person. It was literally me. And so it was in that moment I said, wow, thank you, God, for showing me and what I'm capable of with you. And thank you for showing me what happens when I trust the process. Are you trusting the process? Are you releasing expectations of yourself, giving yourself some grace, reminding yourself that It is okay to have these feelings, but don't let it overtake you. Don't let it control you. Don't let it get you to a space or a mindset where you're like, I can't think. I don't know what to do. And then you freak out and then you're just like a whole different person. Breathe, calm down, and say to yourself, I am made for this. Say it with me. I am made for this. I am made for this, over and over. And I promise you, when those lights, camera, action pop on, you are going to show out like nobody else, like yourself. You're going to show up like yourself. And so with this, I hope that you take this as encouragement. It's a short one today, but I wanted to be short and still with you and just be so straightforward and say, honey, go do the thing. Whatever you're afraid of, go do the thing. Go do the thing. Be bold, be confident, and know that you were made for this. In the meantime, I will see you guys soon. I'm super excited to let you guys know that the Women in Business series is coming out. We have some powerful women, some powerhouse women that are coming on this episode, sharing their stories, sharing their insights. It's going to be a good one. But in the meantime, be blessed and know that you were made for this. Have a great day. If you found value in this episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your key takeaways. Take a moment, download this episode, and share your feedback by leaving a review for this episode. Better yet, snap a screenshot and share it on your social media. Now, don't forget to tag me so I can personally connect with you. Your insights might just be what someone else needs. Now, let's make an impact together.